Hello, we TUCybersecurity Services, a team of seasoned security consultants specializing in the financial sector area. We just held a security clinic which got us a lot of positive feedback and gave us an opportunity to meet up with some new clients. In this presentation, we give you an insight into our initial consultation with one of the attendees. And you should be able to learn some valuable lessons as we walk them through the requirements to protecting and securing their IT data. So basically our agenda is as follows. We start with an overview on our client, Smith & Smith. Then we delve into what we address directly with them. So you'll basically be listening in on the conversation our individual consultants had with them. So you'll hear them explain and give step-by-step instructions on the requirements to protecting their digital data. So firstly, they'll be looking at the importance of confidentiality, integrity, availability, or going by the acronym CIA. We'll look at the National Institute for Standard and Technology, or NIST cybersecurity framework. What assets need to be protected? The cybersecurity assessment tool. Then the conclusion, and at which time we'll open up the floor for questions and answers. Now, based on the security clinic we just had, Smith & Smith approached us and requested a one-on-one meeting with us. So we arranged that we have a group of our consultants sit down with them and go over some requirements that would better assist them. Some company facts. Smith & Smith are a small family-run consulting firm that is owned and primarily managed by a husband and wife team, Jane and John Smith. They did mention that they were compelled to approach us after hearing in our presentation that research has found that financial advisors are among the most targeted personnel in the financial space, since many of them are small-run companies. Being small, they're unable to buy the same kind of protection that big financial institutions can, so they're left vulnerable to attacks. The thieves are after more than just the money. They're after lucrative client data and account information that can increase their earning potential on the dark web. Smith & Smith have 7 certified financial planners on staff, and they cater to a clientele with a minimum of $100,000 to invest. They provide financial planning services to clients that basically cover portfolio management and investment services. In order for them to manage their clients' investment portfolios, they are also registered brokers. And because of that, they have access to sensitive information such as names, addresses, social security numbers, credit scores, income tax information, and the like. So, as our consultants sat down with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they made sure they convey the importance of the need to secure that kind of data which they handled.
An important model for guiding your information security policies is the CIA triad. The CIA triad stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and is one of the most important models in information security. I will now guide you through the CIA triad. Confidentiality is about securing access to your company's data. If confidentiality is high, access must be restricted to employees that need the data to complete their jobs. It should be encrypted, require a username and password, and now many companies are using two-factor authentication. Some examples may be customer and employee social security numbers, as well as their banking information. If confidentiality is rated medium, access should still be restricted, but the data would not require as much protection as high. An example of this may be your company's marketing plans. Low confidentiality is generally public information and will not require protection. An example of this would be the data available on the public sections of your company's websites. Integrity is about maintaining consistency and accuracy of your data. Data should not be changed in transit or in storage, and steps should be taken to ensure this. If your integrity is high, access should be restricted. File permissions should be enacted to ensure that data is not changed by unauthorized personnel. Version controls and rollback features should also be in place. Encryption should be in place to protect integrity in transit and in storage. Some examples of high integrity data might be your employee payroll data and customer financial transactions. Medium integrity would not require as much protection and data consistency as high integrity. Some examples of this may be your company's expense data set. Availability is about ensuring that your data is available when it is needed. What good is your data if it isn't available? One of the best ways to ensure that data is available is to keep your systems maintained and up to date. This will make your systems less susceptible to cyber attacks. Highest availability data should also be backed up to separate off-site facilities so your data can be restored in the event of an IT attack. An example of high availability data may be your customer account data set. Lower availability data would not require the same procedures as higher availability data would.
Founded in 1901, the mission statement of the National Institute of Standards and Technology is to promote U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness by advancing measurement science, standards, and technology in ways that enhance economic security and improve our quality of life. NIST is currently a part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Cybersecurity risk can affect the company's bottom line. It can drive up costs and impact revenue. The NIST cybersecurity framework was created through the collaboration between our government and the private sector. It uses common language to address and manage cybersecurity risk in a cost-effective way without placing additional regulatory requirements on businesses. So why is this framework so important? This framework enables companies, regardless of size, to apply risk management principles and best practices that are specifically developed for cybersecurity. It provides organization and structure to today's multiple approaches to cybersecurity by assembling standards, guidelines, and practices that are working effectively in industries today. This framework is not a one-size-fits-all approach to managing cybersecurity risk. This framework will vary depending on the company and organizations using it. It will help organizations apply practice to their unique environments. It is aimed at reducing and better managing cybersecurity risk, and it is a living document, meaning it will continue to be dynamic as industries evolve. One of the NIST cybersecurity framework's core elements is its functions. These functions aid companies in expressing their management of cybersecurity risk by organizing information, enabling risk management decisions, addressing threats, and improving by learning from previous activities. These 5 functions, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, can be performed concurrently and continuously to form an operational culture that addresses dynamic cybersecurity risk. Identify. This framework function aims to develop the organizational understanding to manage cybersecurity risk to systems, assets, data, and capabilities. This function assesses the question, what assets need protection? Protect. This framework function aims to develop and implement the appropriate safeguards. This function assesses the question, what safeguards are available? Detect. This function aims to develop and implement the appropriate activities to identify the occurrence of a cybersecurity event. This function assesses the question, what techniques can identify incidents? Respond. This framework function aims to develop and implement the appropriate activities to take action regarding a detected cybersecurity event. This function assesses the question, what techniques can contain impacts of an incident? Recover. This framework function aims to develop and implement the appropriate activities to maintain plans for resilience and to restore any capabilities that were impaired due to a cybersecurity attack. This function assesses the question, what techniques can restore capabilities? For simplicity's sake, this presentation will focus solely on the identify function. This is the area we want Smith & Smith to initially focus on.
What asset needs protection? We use the function identify, the first out of the framework, to determine what to protect, what to detect, what to respond to, and what to recover from. Identify has 5 categories: asset management, which identify what kind of assets the company has; business environment, the internal and external factors that affect how the company functions; governance, the company's organizational mission, policies; risk assessment, which deals with identifying risks that will affect the asset, and we rank them from high, medium, and low. And then risk management strategy is putting procedures in place that will safeguard the asset and minimize the risks from occurring. Identify function develops the institutional understanding of which organizational systems, assets, data, and capabilities needs to be protected, determine priorities in light of the organizational mission, and establish processes to achieve risk management goals. It is the first out of the framework and one of the most important.
What is the Cybersecurity Assessment Tool? The Cybersecurity Assessment Tool is a spreadsheet created to help direct a business to identify its assets. The tool was developed regarding ISO standard 27001, which covers information security management. The idea behind the tool is to create an accurate spreadsheet of all a business's assets to be able to properly identify what is valuable, why it is valuable, where and how it is stored, and how and why it needs to be protected. The first task is to figure out what an asset is, and since ISO 27001 focuses on preservation of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, assets can be hardware, such as laptops, desktops, USB drives, mobile devices, etc., software, which includes purchases of software and freeware used by a business, information or data in electronic forms, paper, and other forms, infrastructure such as offices, electricity and plumbing, internet service, air conditioning, etc., people such as employees who carry out processes for the business and have critical information and skills necessary for the business to continue functioning, outsourced services provided by third-party vendors that are necessary for a business to function, such as accounting, legal, email, and logistics services. Now, there are a couple of ways to go about getting the information to fill out your business's asset inventory. The best way may be to sit down with the heads of each department of your business and have them list off every asset, their areas of responsibility used to fulfill their duties for the business. That may not be as feasible for a business as small as Smith & Smith, though. Another method is to interview personnel in the business to quote-unquote describe what they see to you. This is where those personnel describe what they see and use to do their jobs and allows you to build an asset inventory out of what is used by the employees to do their jobs throughout the business. Of course, if any areas of your business already have any type of asset inventories, it is not necessary to make duplicates of those inventories, but it is highly suggested to verify those lists are accurate so you're not missing any assets or recording assets that no longer exist. Once an accurate assessment has been conducted by a business to identify its assets, the business can then move on to the next step in the NIST framework, which is to protect the assets it has identified. Now, this spreadsheet, as you can see here, has rows and columns. Each column describes an attribute for a specific asset that you're going to identify in your business. You can break it down by operating unit and function, and going further, you can describe a process name or a particular type of data. You can assign an owner to it, the name of the asset, so going forward, you know what the asset is and what you're going to identify it as, and then a brief description of the asset. The type of the type of information the asset is stored in. Is it a hard copy? Is it a software program? Is it a digital file? Is it data inside a server? Something of that nature. And then you want to identify each asset. Does it have personal information? Is it personal sensitive data? And is it sensitive customer data? Identifying those three attributes will help you further categorize and classify the data and how you want to protect it and source it. Then you want to decide whether or not the data is confidential and how confidential, the integrity level of the data, the integrity being, is it more important that the data not be manipulated, or is it no big deal if it's changed? And availability, is it an asset that is critically important to the business? You need a constant availability of it, or is it something that you go a period of time without having access to it and it wouldn't critically affect the business? Then you want to know how long you're to retain that type of data. And then some descriptors here at the end. How is the data when it's originally created, and how is the data when it's moved or transferred to a different location? Now here I'll walk you through a few examples so that way when you leave here you have a better idea of how to fill out the spreadsheet and the importance of filling out the spreadsheet. So maybe at your business you have a human resources department, and maybe a basic process that they have there is onboarding new employees. Well, maybe you call that employee data set. Now what's that? What type of data is that? Well, it's forms used to collect new employee information upon hiring. Basic things that employees fill out in order to apply to a business to get a job there. So maybe at your business, you save this information in an Excel spreadsheet, as well as the hard copy files that the employees fill out to apply to your business. This type of data is going to have personal data on it. That data is going to be sensitive. There's not going to be any customer data on it. Is it confidential? Sure, you want this to be confidential. It's more than likely going to have personally identifying information for a potential employee or somebody who has applied to your business. Do you want the integrity of that data to be high? Well, you certainly do. You want to make sure that the information that the employee gave you is correct and that it's not manipulated once it's in your custody. Do you need constant availability of that data? Not necessarily. So that's not too important in this scenario. Data retention, you may only hold this data up until the employee is hired, and then you get additional data later and you get rid of this initial data because it's captured in the next data. Or maybe you hold this until the employee is terminated if they are hired. If they're not hired, maybe you only keep this data on hand for 6 months, a year. I don't know. It's up to your business and what your practices are. Now at origin, what is this data? Well, when an employee is hired, paperwork is generally filled out by the employee with all the information that the business requests in order to accept an application for employment. The paperwork then may be transferred to digital data in the Excel spreadsheet on a PC, so that way people in the company, personnel that do the hiring or managing of potential hires, have that information readily available to them inside a spreadsheet. Now, the importance of capturing all this is that way you know what is that data, where is it, how is it stored, the sensitivity of that data. Is it personal information? Is it sensitive? Is it have customer sensitivity in that data? Then relating to the CIA triangle, how does it fall on our confidentiality side of it, the integrity side of it, and the availability side of it? How do we deal with retaining that data in what length of time period, or what events trigger getting rid of that data? And how do we come by the data at the origin? Like, how does that data first get created and then become part of our custody as a business? So what we've done is we've filled out some examples here for you guys to take home when you're going to fill this out on your own. And just don't think of this in terms as absolutely what you have to do. Your business is going to be different. How you do things is going to be completely different than the next business that has data. What we're trying to instill in you here is to take this as a tool to go back to your business and to, as accurately as possible, identify every type of asset that you have. Because it's important to identify those assets, because going forward, you want to know how to protect that asset and what type of protection is available. You want to know how to recover from an event if an event were to happen to compromise that data, or someone exploits a vulnerability either unintentionally or intentionally and it compromises that data. How can you recover from it? So that's the purpose of this asset assessment tool, is for you to go back to your business, properly identify all those assets, and then come back and we're going to help you go on to the next step of the NIST framework in learning how to protect that data and what options are available to protect those assets.
To recap what we have accomplished during this session, we discussed the importance of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and its importance to Smith & Smith Financial Services Incorporated. We provided a high-level overview of the NIST cybersecurity framework. We specifically conveyed the importance of identifying assets and why it's important to protect those assets. Finally, we conducted a walkthrough of the cybersecurity assessment tool. So what's next? We encourage employees of Smith & Smith to continue to acquire knowledge in the area of cybersecurity. Company leaders must identify assets that need protection and then complete the cybersecurity assessment tool. Once these steps have been completed, schedule a follow-up session with the TU Cybersecurity Services team so we can review the completed assessment with the Smith & Smith executive team. Smith & Smith and TU Cybersecurity Services. Together, we will keep your company and customer information assets secure. Thank you.